Hello, my name is Cindy Flores. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I'm trained in mindfulness-based stress reduction. I'm doing a series on mindfulness during the COVID-19 pandemic to hopefully bring you some new information on how mindfulness might help you get through such a difficult time. However, these topics are also being brought because there's so many different seasons in our lives. And there may be other times when we're going through issues that we'll be discussing here in this series. And these talks are being brought to you through the collaboration of Friends Life Care Partners and White Horse Village. Today, I'd like to talk to you about mindfulness and transition. I can't remember a time in my life where there was so much transition going on globally and where so many humans were experiencing the same thing and going through transition at the same time. Not only that, it feels like, we're told one thing and then a few hours later, told something very different. And this can be very upsetting and disturbing. It can really trigger people's anxiety. It can trigger what we call fight or flight. And for weeks now, people have been going through fight and flight, meaning that their nervous system wants to just either run away from this or somehow fight the pandemic. And in reality, we can do neither. So our bodies don't know what to do. They're producing chemicals that are actually hurting our body, cortisol and other stress hormones that are actually hurting us because they're designed to help us fight or flee. But we can't do that. So today we're going to talk a little bit about transition and how mindfulness can help with learning how to approach and handle and even embrace transition. As a rule, most people don't like change. It brings up a lot of stress. They've even done studies that show that even good changes like a marriage or moving to a house that we want to move to causes a lot of stress hormones to be produced. So even the transitions that we invite into our life will cause some stress. But ones that we cannot control seem to bring up very damaging, stressful experiences in our body. And over long term, those stress hormones can hurt our physical health. I'm definitely seeing, as a licensed professional counselor, I am seeing how it's impacting people's mental health. Some of their old coping mechanisms are coming forward because they aren't able to do the healthier coping skills that they're used to. And so we're going through a lot. People are missing their loved ones. They're missing their routine. And if you've watched any of the previous sessions, you'll know that I draw on one attitudinal foundation of mindfulness stress-based stress reductions, mindfulness-based stress reduction, each time. And for today, it is on the letting go, which I think for most of us is one of the hardest of the foundations. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll give examples of what that looks like. Because we do, by nature, want to hang on to those things that we care about. And yet, whether we care about something or not, the reality is there'll be a transition and a change over time. I'd like to start with a quote from Lao Tzu, a Chinese philosopher many centuries ago. And what he said was, "New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings." And I'd like you to just sit for a moment and think about that. Just have a mindful moment and think about an ending in your life that actually became a beautiful new beginning, even if you thought at the time it was the end of your world. Just close your eyes and take a deep breath and just see, can you remember a time, an experience when you would have called it an end, and now, perhaps many years later even, you see the beauty in it. You see how it led you to a new relationship, or to a new career, or to moving to a new area. When we're discussing letting go, there is a parable that I particularly like that I find really sums up the process of not judging and letting go of issues. And I'd like to read it to you now. Once there was a Chinese farmer who worked his poor farm together with his son and their horse. When the horse ran off one day, neighbors came to say, "How unfortunate for you." The farmer replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no." When the horse returned, it was followed by a herd of wild horses. The neighbors gathered around and exclaimed, "What good luck for you." The farmer stayed calm and replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no." While trying to tame one of the wild horses, the farmer's son fell and broke his leg. He had to rest up and couldn't help with the farm chores. "How sad for you," the neighbors cried. "Maybe yes, maybe no," said the farmer. Shortly thereafter, a neighboring army threatened the farmer's village. All the young men in the village were drafted to fight the invaders. Many died. But the farmer's son had been left out of the fighting because of his broken leg. People said to the farmer, "What a good thing your son couldn't fight." "Maybe yes, maybe no," was all the farmer said. This is an illustration of how we tend to judge whether something is good or bad, right or wrong. The hard part is we can't stand back far enough to see how it might influence our future. And I think we're in a time like that right now. I mean, there's no arguing that this is a time of loss, that there are people suffering, that, you know, there are people have lost jobs. There's no denying some of the things that are so difficult and so hard and the suffering that's going on. However, we don't know long term what this is going to do for us as a culture, for our economy. Temporarily, we can see the unfortunate side of it. We don't know who's going to come forward and invent something or do something or create change so that we have a healthier society or a healthier planet. I mean, even if you look at the map of the quality of air, the pollution in the air, it's gone down. The planet is actually benefiting from this, even if humans do not feel that they are. Yet we are all one. So when the earth benefits, indirectly, we are benefiting as well. Last week, I was out in my yard doing some mulch, which I was grateful that I even had the opportunity to be close enough to home since I travel so much. I don't usually get to do mulch this early in the season. Somehow I had the foresight to order the mulch even before the pandemic really became a quarantine. And I was out doing the mulch, and as I was doing that, I came to the side of the garage, and I saw a small pot on its side. And at first, I thought I was just going to throw it in the trash because it just looked like an old pot, just a small container, nothing of true value. But I left it there. I went back out in the yard and I looked and I saw some green sprouts. And I thought, look at that. Those bulbs are starting to sprout, even though the pot had fallen on its side, probably couldn't receive much rain that way. It was still bringing back forth the green. So I took the pot and I put it upright so that the rain could get to it, sun could get to it. And I thought, let me give the best opportunity for these flowers to grow. And it hit me that this was the pot of daffodils that my mom had given to me, had brought to me last Easter. Every Easter, she always brought, a small pot of flowers to be put on the table or on the island in the kitchen. And when they started to shrivel up last spring, I remember putting the pot out thinking, when I have an opportunity, I'll plant the bulbs. But life went on and got busy. It tipped over. It got up, life went on and I completely forgot about it until I saw it last week. Well, my mother passed away last August. And while I was doing the yard work prior to seeing this pot, it was occurring to me. I was thinking, wow, this is the first Easter I will not be spending with my mother in my entire life. I cannot think of one Easter where I was not present with her. And it brought on a sadness and a heaviness to think about such transition, to think about such change. Well, yesterday, while I was outside, the first daffodil opened. In fact, it's the daffodil sitting behind me on the dresser. And I gained the awareness that though my mom is not here in body and she is here in spirit, it will be different. Moving forward, there will always be that transition of her not sitting across the table at Easter time or other holidays. But this daffodil behind me represents that transition does not mean we're separated from those people we love. It doesn't mean that our memories can't still sustain us and heal us, and that life doesn't go on. Just like that daffodil came back to life, even in adverse conditions, came back to life is a sign that transition can lead to beautiful and renewed things. For today, I would like to introduce two exercises. One is very simple, and it's one that I hope that you will consider doing for yourself. It's actually something that was just brought to my awareness recently. There is something called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, often known as tapping. And while I was watching a video, someone brought to my awareness in this video that we have an acupressure point right between our pinky and our ring finger. And if you're familiar with acupressure points, these are used for things like acupuncture and acupressure and can relieve different symptoms in our body. And what they brought to me was that if you tap, just gently tap right here where I'm doing right now, that you activate something called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve activates what we call the parasympathetic process, the nervous system. It's also our relaxation response. It's the counterpart to our fight or flight or sympathetic nervous system. And so if you are feeling stressed after watching the news or hearing some bad news, or feeling lonely over the holidays as we approach Passover and Easter and other holidays, a time when maybe we're used to getting out more. If you're noticing you're feeling stressed, I encourage you to try just tapping right here on this acupressure point, just gently, for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and see, knowing that your body has inner wisdom and that it will activate the vagus nerve without you telling it to. It knows how to do that. The second practice that I'd like to introduce is called expanding awareness. It's one of the meditations that we use in MBSR. When we do mindfulness, when we introduce mindfulness, and in case you haven't seen the earlier sessions, let me just reframe what I mean by mindfulness. Mindfulness is a way of life. It's a way of interacting with our world and a way of interacting with ourselves. However, just like exercise, physical exercise leads to physical health or can contribute to physical health, that these exercises that we do contribute to developing mindfulness. And so as I introduce these different practices, different formal exercises, just know that if you were to go back and practice this one or one of the previous ones every day for the next 8 weeks, studies show that you would strengthen the parts of the brain that are for decision making, problem solving, empathy, peace, and joy. These are all parts of the brain that we truly need in this difficult time, as well as in many other times in our life. So I would ask that you now sit in a comfortable position with your head over top of your spine, with your shoulders back enough to be sitting what we call in an open-hearted way. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, I invite you to close your eyes now. If you're uncomfortable with closing your eyes fully, just take a gentle gaze downward, just finding a point to just gently gaze at. Take a deep breath in, filling your lungs. And then in a slow exhale. Take another deep breath in and a slow exhale. And continue doing this for several breaths. Studies have also shown that just by having a slower exhale than inhale also activates the vagus nerve that I just spoke about. So if you do just the slow, deep breaths, you are also activating the relaxation response within your body. Now, where some exercises with mindfulness are to have you learn how to really focus and stay focused on one thing, sometimes in life, it is wiser to be able to shift our awareness. And this exercise is a practice in showing how we can choose to shift our awareness, especially when we're dwelling on something very sad and uncomfortable, something that we don't need to be dealing with in that moment. So take one more breath in and out, just noticing the sensation of the breath as it interacts with the body. Now I invite you to shift your awareness to the sense of sound. Allow your ears to receive sound. Perhaps you hear a sound very close up. Perhaps a sound in the distance or outside of your window. Can you allow your ears to take in that sound without judgment? without labeling. Or perhaps you hear no sound at all. Can you sit with this part of the meditation with no sound and not judging the fact that you hear nothing in this moment? And if your eyes are closed, I invite you to just open them ever so slightly, just so you can take in light, not focusing on any one particular thing. Can you decipher different colors, different textures? Perhaps notice where the light in the room is coming from, where it is brighter, where other areas might be in the shadows. Perhaps now pick one item, one small part of your field, and just focus on it. Maybe it's a part of your computer. If you're using a laptop, perhaps it's something sitting behind the device you're using right now. And can you just focus on the details? Perhaps seeing it in a way that you have never seen it before. Perhaps it's shiny or dull. Perhaps you start to have thought like it's dusty. It needs to be dusted. If thoughts like that come in, can you choose to see that thought on a cloud and watch that thought just drift away as the cloud goes in to the distance? And then just bring your awareness back to this object. Now I invite you to close your eyes again and focus on the sense of smell. And see if you can take in any scent. Perhaps the scent is pleasant. Perhaps you would call it unpleasant. But can you just have an awareness of any scent, anything that your sense of smell can take in? Now choosing to shift to the sense of taste. If by chance you have a piece of gum or something in your mouth, that might be simple. If not, it may feel challenging. But can you sit here just with the intention of focusing on taste? Perhaps noticing if your mouth becomes more moist or dry as you think about tasting something that you truly enjoy. Think about if you had that piece of candy or if you had your favorite meal. How does your body shift as you think about tasting that? And now shifting to the sensation of touch. Noticing where your clothing touches your skin. Perhaps you can even feel where your hair touches your neck, or as it's just sitting on your head. Just notice the touch sensation. Perhaps you feel the sensation of your body as it sits on this chair and makes contact with the chair, or the hardness of the floor under your feet. Now shifting to just thought, not getting caught up in any particular thought, but just notice how thoughts come and go. Some are very fleeting and judgmental. Some may be longer lasting, but all thoughts have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Every thought eventually transitions to the next thought. Same with emotions. Notice how you're feeling in this moment. Maybe relaxed, maybe bored, maybe tired or excited. Just notice. No need to change anything. Everything is designed to transition anyhow. And then coming back to the breath, the sensation of the breath. Feel the sensation of filling your lungs with air, and then the contraction of the lungs on the exhale. And take 2 more deep breaths in and out. And after you've completed the second exhale, you may open your eyes. So just notice how you are feeling in this moment. Has it shifted from before we did this exercise? Just notice how you're feeling in this present moment. Without labeling it or judging it, just noticing that there's been a transition in our time together. It has probably changed many times over the last few minutes. And so I invite you, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling like you can't get the news out of your mind, the negativity of how things have changed the last few weeks, I invite you to just take a few moments, close your eyes and show yourself, demonstrate to yourself that you do have the power to change what you focus on. And until we meet again, I hope stay safe, stay healthy, and goodbye.